Hi there, I'm Ben Mankiewicz. Thanks for joining me on TCM, where we've got a twin bill featuring an actor whose career is filled with good performances spanning half a century. We have two of his most significant films ahead tonight. The actor is Ray Milland, and we begin with a groundbreaking drama that won the Academy Award for Best Picture. It's from Paramount in 1945, The Lost Weekend. Milland, born Alfred Reginald Jones in Wales in 1907, started making movies in England in 1929. His Hollywood career took off when he signed with Paramount in 1934. Before long, he became a popular leading man in romantic comedies and adventure films. And it was at Paramount, 11 years later, that he experienced his greatest triumph, winning the Best Actor Oscar for The Lost Weekend, the film you're about to see. Much more than a vehicle for Milland to shine, The Lost Weekend became Hollywood's first serious examination of alcoholism, which was so often played for laughs, both before and after this film. From Buster Keaton to Jimmy Stewart and Harvey to Dudley Moore, audiences have laughed at hopelessly drunk characters for roughly a century. W.C. Fields and Dean Martin used booze to further their screen personas. Given that background, when studio execs saw a rough cut of The Lost Weekend, they were not ready for the harsh reality of alcohol addiction. This somber look at a broken man with a serious problem made Paramount so nervous the studio considered keeping the film out of theaters. The liquor industry, a huge advertiser, was concerned it would not only hurt sales but possibly even launch a new prohibition, which had ended just 12 years earlier in 1933. Big Booze offered Paramount $5 million to burn the negative. But director Billy Wilder, also the co-writer, suggested Paramount give his picture a limited release in New York just to gauge audience reaction. Well, within days, people were lining up around the block to see The Lost Weekend. In addition to the Best Picture Oscar, the film won Academy Awards for Wilder as Best Director, Wilder and Charles Brackett for Best Screenplay, and Milland, cast totally against type, for Best Actor. Ray Milland was not Wilder's first choice for the role either. Wilder wanted the then unknown Jose Ferrer, whom he'd seen on Broadway, but Paramount thought only an established star could make the film work. Wilder was drawn to the material after working on the screenplay for Double Indemnity with Raymond Chandler, who was a recovering alcoholic. Wilder claimed he made the movie in part as an attempt to explain Raymond Chandler to himself. Here it is from 1945, also with Jane Wyman, The Lost Weekend. Because of the seriousness of The Lost Weekend, the original plan was to release the film without a musical score. But when early preview audiences laughed at some of Ray Milland's drunken behavior, the studio hired Miklos Rosa to compose music. It was one of the first film scores to feature the sliding and eerie sound of the theremin. Rosa felt the instrument reflected the pathos of alcoholism. Lost Weekend's score received an Oscar nomination, but Rosa lost to himself for his score for Spellbound, which also featured the theremin. As I mentioned before the movie, Ray Milland won an Oscar for his performance in The Lost Weekend. When Ingrid Bergman handed him the award at the ceremony, he was so surprised all he could say was, thank you very much indeed. I am greatly honored." The audience loved it. Coming up, Ray Milland is back, playing a mysterious character in a 1949 film noir. Alias Nick Beal is next on TCM.
Next on TCM, Alias Nick Beal. Then Our Modern Maidens. And later, Coup de Grace. The end is nigh on TCM tonight.
Hi, I'm Ben Mankiewicz. Thanks for joining us on TCM as we continue our salute to actor Ray Milland with the back half of tonight's double feature. We just had Milland's Oscar-winning performance in Lost Weekend from 1945. Up next from Paramount in 1949, Milland stars in a noir with a great title, Alias Nick Beal. This is a modern retelling of the Faust legend, updated to a post-war big city littered with crime and the stench of politics. Milland stars as the title character. Nick Beal is a mysterious, shrewd, and sinister customer who appears out of nowhere to provide a district attorney with evidence to convict a notorious racketeer. Ray Milland often played villains during his long career, but none of them ever reached the depths that Nick Beal does, except perhaps Tony Wendis. That's his character in Alfred Hitchcock's Dial M for Murder. Alias Nick Beal marked the third time Milland worked with director John Farrow, the father of actress Mia Farrow. Farrow and Milland previously collaborated on a Western called California. That was from 1947, as well as a thriller, The Big Clock, from 1948. After Alias Nick Beal, they made one more movie together, a Western from 1950, Copper Canyon. But Alias Nick Beal is the only time Milland played the bad guy in a John Farrow movie. Alias Nick Beal has gone on to become enormously popular with film noir fans, and it certainly has noirish components, stark black and white cinematography enhanced by fog and mysterious shadows, all courtesy of the director of photography, Lionel Linden. There's also a suitably eerie score by Franz Waxman, not to mention a typically fine performance by Ray Milland, who you'll see at his sinister best, or worst. From Paramount, 1949, also with Thomas Mitchell, George Macready, and one of noir's favorite tough dames, Audrey Totter, Alias Nick Beal. Prior to Alias Nick Beal, Ray Milland had played dishonest characters, even evil ones, but Nick Beal was by far the most diabolical. Milland was always careful not to appear too evil too often, particularly in a film as dark and moody as Alias Nick Beal. He made sure his next couple of pictures were light romantic comedies where he could play likable, easygoing characters. Versatility was a touchstone of Milland's career, a trait not shared by too many big Hollywood stars of the era. Milland was always conscious of being typecast, and his ability to swing from dark to bright kept that from happening. That versatility helped him launch a new late career phase in the 1960s and 70s as the star of cult horror and sci-fi films, including Premature Burial, X, The Man with X-Ray Eyes, and The Thing with Two Heads. Along the way, he played Ryan O'Neal's unsupportive father in the 1970 hit Love Story. Ray Milland kept working in television and films until his death at 79 in 1986. Coming up, The Professor, Jacqueline Stewart Has Silent Sunday Night, and Joan Crawford's final silent film, Our Modern Maidens, is next on Turner Classic Movies.
Next on TCM, Our Modern Maidens, then Coup de Grace, and later The Night Porter. TCM takes your bags tonight.